Episode 170, How Healing the Boy Helps You Find the Man, with Glenn Lovelace.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
The coaching tools are something that many women have caught on to and adopted into their lives. They've seen amazing results by changing the way they think about the circumstances they come across. But what about their husbands? Coach Glenn Lovelace is on the podcast because he sees that while the women are changing, the men in their lives need to start changing as well. He coaches men whose wives have been transformed by coaching. We know the majority of listeners to the podcast are women, but this is a podcast you can listen to and then pass along to your husband so that he can catch the vision of what coaching can do for him as well. Glenn is passionate about helping men in embracing coaching, so make sure you reach out to him and have him help your husband, or maybe even convince your husband he needs help. Glenn is a great resource either way. Enjoy this episode.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast today. I am so happy to be joined by Coach Glenn Lovelace. Hey, Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm kind of on vacation, as I told you, and doing some work too. So I'm somewhat in vacation mode, which is good.
Isn't it interesting? I know you're there. You said you're on vacation mode, and we kind of had a conversation before we hit record here, but he's kind of on working vacation. He's working on a project, and I think we'll talk about that project maybe a little bit through it. But there's something I think really exciting about working on projects like this, but also scary at the same time. But it's kind of exciting and rejuvenating that it can kind of feel like a vacation at the same time, but
Absolutely.
hard.
I have 6 kids at home, and we have a 7th on the way. And then, as I told you, I have this ugly book baby that I'm working on. It's kind of interesting to pull yourself out of the roles and responsibilities you have and the patterns and all the things, and then just be like, I feel like cooking right now, and then doing what you want. It's interesting. It's hard to do. It's really hard to pull yourself out.
Yeah. And bless your wife. She's home with 6 kids and she's pregnant.
She is a rock star.
Yeah,
She
apparently.
is solid. She is very solid. But yeah, we do life together and figure it out. And it is interesting because earlier today I was like, man, it takes so much time to like cook your food and do your dishes and clean up after yourself. And not that my wife does all that for me, but it was like, man, being married's awesome because we can really relegate and lean on each other and come and go. And so as much as we might think marriage is an inconvenience sometime, that you miss it after a couple of days, and I'm sure others can relate. But
well, and you think about how much we're able to accomplish because we're able to offboard some of the things that we don't love to do and maybe we're not that good at to somebody else who kind of probably really likes to do those sort of things, and we can accomplish so much more because we have a teammate to do it with.
Yeah, have you read the book Fair Play or heard of the game Fair Play?
No, I haven't.
Ooh, if most of your listeners are gals, it's a book written by kind of an angry woman because she's had all these roles relegated to her, or she's picked up all these responsibilities, and maybe in her marriage that they haven't talked about who can pick up what and the expectations. And so in my research of behind enemy lines of trying to help men figure out their marriage and really support the women in their life, I've gone behind enemy lines to try to figure that out. So I've read a lot of books written by angry women. She wasn't angry, but I'm just playing. but I ordered the game and I handed the cards to Amber, and her stack was really, really big of all the things it takes to run a household. And then my stack was pretty small, and we talked about cards that I thought I had, but she was like, you don't do that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And it was really kind of playful, and it was a good spot in our marriage. I mean, if you're having a hard marriage right now, it probably is not the right place to start. But if you're in a good place where you can communicate and argue fairly I think it's a great opportunity because there really is a lot that we can do together. I thought of kind of the oxen being teamed up, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but two oxen can pull, let's just make up a number, 8 or 10 times what one oxen can pull. And I don't know the math, so don't quote me
Yeah.
on that, but I know there's some science behind that or some results. And
Yes.
so
I
yeah, as a marriage, we can totally pull more together. Even if we don't like it, we don't have to like the cards we pick up. We just got to do them.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you said you can what you said something angry, like you can what
Argue
where we
fairly.
argue fairly.
Yeah,
And that's what it was. And which I think so many people are afraid of the argument. They think it's
mostly
bad,
men.
something's gone
Mostly men.
terribly wrong, right? And really the argument means that things are going right. It means that you guys are wanting things to work, you're wanting to make things better, and we have to lean into that space a little bit, but just learn how to do it well.
And here's the magic thought for me. It was I love to go to the gym and hurt myself and face all this opposition. And in my marriage, I avoid all confrontation. I'm passive aggressive. I'm this, I'm that. And my wife, she's a passionate, elevated woman. Those are my safe words for describing someone who's angry and yells. And I've discovered like I had a lot of judgment towards anger. Like anger is not a human emotion that's allowed.
Mm,
And I was wrong. So with that being said, I referenced the gym in this thought where, look, I go to the gym to face war. Like, if I can't walk tomorrow, that's a sign that I did really well. And I didn't look at that my marriage in that way, but once I did, everything changed. So it's like my wife is not fighting me, she's fighting for us. Instead of making her fighting me disrespectful, I made it an act of love and commitment and ultimate devotion. And I still struggle with this because who likes to be yelled at? But when I activate that thought, it completely changes how I'm viewing the situation. She's fighting for us, and thank heaven she has, because we'd be divorced like 100 times. And do you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
I couldn't handle the pressure of my own discomfort. So where I would say a lot of people, have you heard of John Gottman, Seven
Hmm.
Principles for Making Marriage Work, something like that? He
Yeah.
talks about the four horsemen. And
Yeah.
so for those who are LDS, we think anger is contention. And
Right.
it's like contentions of the devil, so you're not allowed to be angry. And it's like, well, Jesus was angry in the temple. And it's like, okay, is this sacred rage we're talking about, or like is this okay? And where's the line? And I think contention could be connected back to the four horsemen, where it's like what contempt, criticism, stonewalling, and help me out,
I
uh,
know they're the tip of my tongue.
defensiveness,
Defensiveness. Yep.
defensiveness.
Yep.
Yeah, and if the listeners don't know what that is, go look at this because it'll help you identify where you're showing up with your
Hmm.
horses. If you're in a good place to argue fairly, fight fairly with your wife, she can see her horses or you can help her see them. And then you can weed those horsemen out of the way you fight fairly. I call it your tribal language. So it's like, hey, Amber's my wife. How do we want to fight? Because how do we want to handle uncomfortable conversations that need to be had? And it's like if we can keep contention out of it, and then I've compartmentalized contention as those four horsemen, then I know what my rules of engagement are. This is kind of a tactical dude phrase, right?
Hmm.
But it's like that's how we fight fairly in a nutshell.
Hmm. I love it. Okay, so I'm kind of getting glimpses. Obviously, you're a life coach, and most life coaches have like they've dialed in on this is who I work with, this is what I do, this is what I can help you accomplish in your life. I'm kind of getting glimpses of what that is, but do you want to like share with
Expound.
us? Yes.
Absolutely. So I started coaching in 2008. eBay, Amazon, Shopify, stores online, drop shipping, affiliate marketing, how to make money from your kitchen table.
Mm.
And it was awesome. I was good at it. I sold junk online through college. Now my kids are doing it. It's really funny to see them selling four-wheelers to grown men. And
I love it.
um and then in 2017, I won this bodybuilding contest. It's like a fat dad transformation, you know, take pictures in your underwear, like stuff that's kind
Yeah.
of not normal for me. And they paid me 100 grand, which was pretty cool. So I had this platform to help people lose weight and be healthier. And after a year of doing it for free, my wife's like, "So you're already working 3 jobs. When are you gonna like charge for this too? And I was like, oh, I guess I should do that. And then I got into that. And then by 2019, my wife and a few others like, dude, you should be a life coach. And I was like, nah, life coaches is lame. They're super annoying. And I was familiar with Jody Moore, and bless her heart, I could not stand her at the time. I was like, what is this garbage? Like, if this works for you, like, Jody, here's $500 a year. If this is helping Amber, like, I am
Uh-huh.
all on board. You're making my life easier. And she would trickle stuff to me. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, who's her mentor? And so I became certified in 2019, started evolving from business, making money and all those things to health and fitness and how much that can have an impact on bridging what you have control over into other areas of your life, and then enter life coaching. And it's like, wow. And as I got in this community, this is really cool, and it kind of adds context to this all. My wife has a salon. We've been married for 20 years. And so I've literally interviewed hundreds of women that have come through talking about all the problems and just being a listening ear. And then I go to life coach school with Brooke Castillo. It's probably what, 99.9% women.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And I started seeing a problem in this community that nobody's addressing, and that's acceptance of men just being good enough to love.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that pisses me off. Like, that makes, like, you're selling me short of what I could do because you're trying to stay comfortable and just stay in acceptance. Now, don't get me wrong, acceptance is beautiful. It's part of the healing process, but what's on the other side? And so I took this really big leap to say, hey, I coach men whose wives have transformed from coaching. And I've taken a lot of flack for this niche because I can't necessarily directly market or target men whose wives have transformed from coaching. I need
Hmm.
you gals to give requests and proper ultimatums to really nurture this relationship to a point where he's okay to listen to this guy dude explain why he needs to do this work. And oh, by the way, Glenn can help you build muscle. He can help you make more money. We don't have to talk about thoughts and feelings the entire time. We can be totally A line based, but you do need to know how to communicate, connect, and build a nurturing relationship in your marriage. And so that's kind of the short version of the long version of how I got here. And I am just so committed to helping this particular man that I'm putting a lot of money on the on the street where I can't get access to it because I can go make money. I can go help people and I can love what I do. But like, this is what I'm called to do, and I've just really planted myself here despite the opposition of people being like, dude, you need to direct market these people. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
money there, but I really want to help this particular man figure his stuff out, and we can do all of it, and that's the good news, I
Hmm.
guess. So
Ooh. Okay, so the statement that you said when you said your husband's only job basically is to give you somebody to love, right?
yeah, I hate that.
I know you do, but I have to tell you that that is a
Yes,
statement that changed my life.
it does. I love it too.
Yeah, but here's what I think this is why it changed my life, and I have to say, like it's really the very first life coachy thing I ever heard, and it kind of it brought me into this world.
Sure.
But what it did was it started making significant changes within me. Not just that statement, but when I like saw that there were things that I could shift in my brain to kind of help me.
Gave
My marriage,
room.
yes,
Yeah.
my marriage was fine, but I had no idea it could be so much better. But here's what happened. I started making changes, and without even my husband needing to change. Like he wasn't doing anything intentionally, but it started happening. There were changes that were happening. And so what I think is so amazing is yes, I can do the changes. Your a wife can make the changes, but if you have two people working at the same time, it's amazing what can happen if you're both working.
And we're talking the same thing still, maybe just from other sides of the aisle,
Yeah.
where it's like, my argument is imagine doing life together with the same tools.
Yep, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like if we're both doing it, it's
It's like the
crazy.
oxen.
Yeah.
Like, look at the effectiveness of what we can do in maybe 2020. I'm forgetting my timeline. My head got rattled in June. So like stuff's rattled up. But we decided to sell our house where everything happened. We had a lot of connections and hard times in this house, but it was just like our house, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really inspired to move at a very specific time because I had felt inspired to buy the building lot and then this opportunity to live in a mother-in-law's basement for a year while we built, and all these things were like, honestly, it was like magic happening. It was like, go, like jump through the hoop and go. And we had an open house scheduled for Saturday. We got a call from Amber's dermatologist that she had stage 2 melanoma and that it was bad. She needed to go in for surgery that next week. And oh, by the way, she was 7 months pregnant, which added a lot of complications and resistance on her part because she was worried about the baby and radiation and meds and drugs and all these things. And then the doctors are adding this pressure. And we're out in the street and we got the call. And of course, cancer is just a scary, awful word. There's all these unknowns of the unknown future that creates doubt, fear, concern, all the things. And we cried for about 10, 12, 15, 20 minutes. And then we kind of used the tools. We're like, what are the facts here? What do we know? What do we not know? What's our next right step? And we moved through this process all while moving and selling and going through all these things. And we've got this whole tribe of kids, and just life was already crazy. And then that happened. And people came to us and they're like, how are you guys doing this? Because like we know you're real and you're authentic and you share your emotions and all these things, but you guys are like crushing this situation. And we're like, we are doing life by the same set of rules and we're here to support each other. And it was a beautiful like situation that just showed the power of having tools and being on the same page
Mm-hmm.
in this way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm assuming all is well with Amber
yeah.
these days.
So she's pregnant again. I told you
Yeah.
earlier. We got
Mm-hmm.
we got baby number 7 coming, and that I am not a guy who is planning on having 5 kids, let alone 7. And this is kind of a funny story, especially for like LDS culture, and hearing voices and all the good stuff of inspiration.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not trying to make light of personal revelation. In fact, I live my life by personal revelation, and it is so important to me. But I had scheduled a vasectomy 2 years ago, and I realized I had an ear surgery set for the same day, so I was kind of like saved by the bell a little bit. And I took the ear surgery option. And then the next week, I was like, I should probably get that scheduled. I go on to Google. This guy has like 1 and 2 star reviews, and I was like, oh, cool. Well, I dodged a
Uh-huh.
interesting situation. So I asked all the older, mature guys at the gym, who did you go to? And they gave me this guy. And then I argued with insurance and blah blah blah. And anyway, I got it scheduled. And I'm driving to Idaho to pick up Amber and the kids. And I share this out of like the sacredness of the story, but it's like I heard a voice from heaven that said, "Daddy, don't forget about me."
Mm.
And I just ugly man cried and just felt the moment. I pick up Amber and I'm teasing her like are you sure we're done? And like just really harassing her. She started to get a little agitated. And I was like, well, I sort of had this experience. And I tried to tell her about it and I had the whole experience again. And so she was a little upset by it, but totally accepting. And yeah, we're having number 7. So she's doing really good. She's a total rock star. We have teenager stuff going on with phones and friends and chores and kids lying, and we're just in it together, and it's pretty beautifully chaotic.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Beautiful chaos is what it is in life. But
Yeah.
well, that's awesome. Glad that things are going well after you guys have had a lot of interesting
Yeah.
circumstances arise over the last little while. Okay, so men come to you probably with some help from their from their wives. Would you say like
I would say 30% of my business is influenced by the gals. 60,
okay.
70 is men who want to make more money, uh, muscles. Unfortunately, they want to have more sex and they don't get it,
Yeah.
which they want to have better relationships, but that's the result that they present with. And I'm like, okay, here's where you're missing the mark. So
Yeah.
I've got some. I want to be 100% on this men whose wives have transformed, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So when you start working um, um with your clients, tell me, I'm just curious, like what are they're resistant probably of some things. They probably like confrontation. They don't want confrontation. They think that's bad. I just want to know like what they present with, what they want to be different, how you how do you help shift their mind? I'm asking for a lot of things to be shared in
Yeah.
just a few minutes, but I just kind of want to know the perspective that you like to take with them and what
I
they are looking for.
I love meeting men where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be some of these external, more worldly aspirations and goals. My one-two punch is always your wife, your marriage, spirituality with yourself and with God. And I'm willing to take as much time as it takes for that to organically happen, which could be a fault, but I feel like men need to kind of go through this process of evolving and what I call healing the boy, and I can't necessarily push that on them. I've been, I'm trying to model the savior, if I'm being truly honest, where it's like I'm trying to be here and be a light for what is possible, but also kind of let people come to me and not have that attitude or energy of chasing and pursuing and selling. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of a long game. But men will come to me with their goals. I say, hey, your goal is my goal. Oh, you don't have goals, you have no drive, no energy. Well, that's a problem. Let's see what's trapping you, and let's look at your habits, routines, your addictions, how you spend your time. Let's move some energy, and then let's reinvigorate what goals and drive looks like. Like let's help you be a man again, because life gets heavy and we forget. And so if their goal is to take their business from 3 million to 10, like I've literally done that. I've helped men get raises. No, this is the wildest story ever. I had a dentist come to me. He's like, I make 350 grand. I want to make 1 million. And he's like, I think I could force my company to give me a $500,000 raise, but I need some help. And oh, by the way, I'm skinny soft. I want to put on muscle, and I want to work on the relationship with my wife and my teenage daughter. And straight faced, I just said, bro, let's go. Like these tools work. I don't know how you're gonna get a $500,000 raise. Like in my head, I'm just like, whoa, but I know these tools work. And within 6 months, we leveraged that opportunity for him. And I have to share this part. He got offered 250, but I'm like, bro, um, I told you this point was gonna come where you would have to decide to say no or not. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, this is a lot of money you're being offered. What's your decision? He's like, no, I'm worth this. I'm like, okay. And we spent 30 days going through the negotiation process. He got his raise, 850,000. He also got a bonus, and he got 100 grand worth of debt paid off. And I'm just like, how are these guys doing this? Like, these tools really do work. Like, this is amazing. And so I like to meet men where they are. Wherever they're willing to make progress, I can inject these tools, and then I can bridge them to the areas where I think they're missing and have an impact on, hey, spirituality is number one. You leading your family is number two. And then whatever's left over, great, let's go have some fun and live life because that's what it's for. But you need that personal revelation, and we've got to pull the world off of you. We've got to filter all the crap and programming that's been put on you. And you can be a really good guy and still be missing the mark. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can
Oh yeah.
still be missing your potential, and that's where I'm at. So it's like Heather, I just got to meet you where you're at and get started on the work, and let's just see where this goes.
Mm-hmm. So good. Okay, so let's leave. I mean, I'm wondering if we can share so people can feel like, okay, I'm taking something from this that's actionable that I can use.
Yeah.
What do you got? What's something that you could share with the listeners today that they can start implementing in their own life?
Good. So if the majority of the listeners are gals, we got to talk to the gals.
Yep. And they probably
Um,
are, but
they
we're going to
probably
have
are.
some
That's
men here
great.
too. Yeah.
I love all of you gals. Like you're amazing. I see you. I see you doing your work, and I'm trying to fight on your behalf. So the number one thing I think women can do is get results from coaching. Inspire your husband that this is working. Make it undeniable that these processes work and keep going. Inspire him. Um, I just think that's a beautiful way to do it because as I've talked to women, they've told me, hey, look, I'm kind of holding back in my own transformation because I'm creating a void between where I am and where I'm going and the guy that's sitting on the couch in his own hypothetical emotional comfort here. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, I kind of see that. And I'm like, are you starting to resent him? And she's like, yes, no, maybe, but I probably will eventually if something doesn't change. And I was like, okay, that's good to be aware of. And so I think gals just need to keep doing their work. Another action item I would say is continue to share what you feel inspired to share with your husband. If it's a podcast, if it's a book, if it's inspired actions that you're taking, I think that's totally beautiful. My wife sent me stuff for 18 months before I actually listened to one Jody Moore podcast. And because it was Jody Moore, I didn't connect to it. So we
Hmm.
totally missed like
Hmm.
two people passing and boom, we missed each other. So I've tried to be kind of that mansplain voice of, hey dudes, like this is what this means when they say this, and they're like, are you kidding me? So, so for men and women, here's a really good tool. I love this. It's really simple. But let's say one of you had a really hard day and you're complaining about something. You're coming with negative energy, you're venting, you're whatever. Um, as a husband, I'm training and showing men that, hey, stepping in there and fixing it might be a problem. Like your desire to take action and fix things is not always going to work. In fact, 90% it's actually going to make it worse. So, what I've tried to present with them is like, here's the idea. Your wife comes to you, she's upset, and you jump in and try to fix it, or you do nothing. Those are kind of our options. Do nothing as an active listen, really be a space and a container for her to be human and not try to fix her. Those are the two best options I can identify. And I'm like, do you feel like you're guessing which one's the right one? And they're like, always. And I'm like, that's because if she doesn't like the actions you're taking, she can pull an audible. An audible is when Tom Brady, the quarterback, goes to the line, he sees what the defense is presenting, and he changes the play to get where he wants to go. And I'm like, your wife can pull an audible based on how she feels. So let's say you perfectly listen, and then she makes it mean that you don't care because you're not jumping in there to help her. Or you do the opposite. She's like, I wish you would just listen. Like all I need is someone to listen. And it's like, well, dang girl, like tell me what you want and then I can be there for you. And so what I do is I pump the brakes for men and I'm like, hey, does she need a shoulder or a hammer? Does she need someone to cry on and be strong and a rock for, or does she want you to get in there and break stuff and fix stuff and build with her? And they're like, oh, like that totally makes sense. And I'm like, hey, when you're in that situation, what I want you to do is pump the brakes. And you're like, hey, babe, I'm listening. Real quick, I need you to tell me if you want me to be here for you or and listen, or if you want me to jump in and try to like ask questions. And as a coach, I can't coach my wife. I've made that a rule. So
Hmm.
I gotta I gotta coach differently than I husband support and shoulder. Um, so anyway, I think that goes both ways. Now, let's say I'm being negative and I'm unloading on my wife as far as how I'm feeling and the day went. And my wife is very masculine, very jump in and let's do this. Don't complain to me unless you're ready to do something about it. And I'm like, I just need to be human for a minute. So if I notice her doing that, I can empower myself and be like, Amber, I need you to just let me be human for a minute. And honestly, most of the time she doesn't. She's like, well, if you're going to complain, we're going to do some work. And I'm like, okay, let's go. But that's a way to empower me as a husband to be like, hey, Amber, what do you need? What do you want? And then I get to sit there and be the best dang listener ever and just love her and support her to the moon and back, wherever she decides to go. And then I also get to stand up for myself and be like, yo, like, I really need to be human for a minute. And I can kind of hold that line or let it go. And I think that's a really powerful tool. So you're talking about action items. I think inspire your husband, keep sending him inspired information and things that inspire you. The other thought I have is women, like you are so connected to God and you don't know it, or you do know it and you're afraid to share it. And so I've had a bunch of stories where Amber has told me what I need to do, given me suggestions and ideas, and this is a spot for us, and it has been even recently where I'm not necessarily listening. So an example is I have sleep apnea, and I have narrow nasal passages that make me a snorer,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't consider myself like 400 pounds. It's not like it's my body that's creating this problem in terms of my health. It's my anatomy. So anyway, I don't even know how many years ago. It feels like many decades now, but she said, "Glenn, you're like, I'm worried you're dead. Like you'll stop breathing for 45 seconds." She's like, "You need to get a sleep study done." And this went on for like 7 years. And then finally, I went to a new dentist. He does the panoramic X-rays. Like, do you snore? And I'm like, how'd you know? Like, and it's like, we have really narrow nasals, and I strongly recommend that you get a sleep study done. And so I went in, and my wife's like, Glenn, like, what the heck, man? Like, I've been telling you this for 7 years, and
Yes.
then you finally do it. And another example, the life coach school thing, she's like, Glenn, go to life coach school. And I'm like, it's 3 grand a month. And I think it's gone up from there, but
Yeah.
she's like, you'll figure it out. You always do. And another gal friend of mine who's a life coach, she's like, Glenn, you need to go to life coach school. And I'm like, okay. And like, that's another example of that like third party
Mm-hmm.
expert being the example. And so I think as women, you know your husbands and you can make him a little bit uncomfortable, good uncomfort, by pressing and pushing him through the inspired thoughts and actions that you have based on the results that he's wanting to get. So if we're talking about action items, I think, man, we're talking about the spirit again, where it's like, man, can you make some time to really receive what God has for you? And if it's difficult information that your husband needs to hear, like you need to figure out a way to put that on him and let him carry it and not you carry it. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I love about that too is that, I mean, I know for me that also we can be led to the things that to different tools that could be of help, right? Like you said, you listened to Jody and that didn't really resonate with you, but your wife kept trying, and surely she was led to something that did resonate with you and was able to share that with you. And I think that we have to kind of try things out. Like even some life coaches aren't going to resonate with certain people, right? You got to try and find the right one, the right therapist, the right something. You have to just until you find the one, until you find the thing that is helpful. So, the spirit will guide us to that.
We This comes back to acceptance. I really believe we accept too many things in our life as just the way it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So like right now, my arm will not go straight. I cannot do a push-up. I can't even hang. If I fell in the water, I'd probably drown right now. And that is devastating to me. But I am bound and determined to get 20 surgeries. Like I'll cut my entire elbow out and put a new one in. I will do emotional therapy. Like I will do anything that it takes to keep making progress until I find what's going to work and unravel it. And I've just kind of adopted that mentality where it's like, okay, it's a matter of time before I figure out this problem, even if I have to cut my elbow out and get my arm to go straight. Like I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we could adopt that, and maybe that's a little extreme, and Glenn's coming off of like this like years and years of creating results. So I think that sounds like a little outlandish and all the things, but it's like you guys, like if you have a problem, go like how much information do we have right here
Mm-hmm.
that we can totally tap into, and then you combine that with again, seems like personal revelation is a topic here. Like you're literally unstoppable if you will just keep trying, take that step into the darkness, exercise some faith, you know, because this is an LDS based podcast, it's like take take the journey into Jerusalem and go find Laban. Like whatever your Laban is, like not knowing beforehand where I was supposed to go really feels like life sometimes. And I think we forget that it could be very simple if we'll just get quiet.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think we can get complacent. I think sometimes that is part of our culture that, sit back and accept the Lord's timing and all will work out. But the Lord loves effort. We can't forget that
Oh,
part, right?
beautiful.
He loves effort, and we have to keep working and keep trying, and He will magnify those efforts. And I think to me, that's where the strength comes from. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I have this process in my head called connect the dots backwards. So a lot of times it's hard to go into the future and have that faith and self-confidence that we talk about, confidence
mhm,
versus self-confidence from that future self. And so if we go into our past and we find God in our hardships and we connect the journey of being in the wilderness and the patterns of God, we can have confidence that when we're going into the future unknown, we can be like, okay, where is God today? And even though my path is not well lit yet, like I know he'll magnify the next right step. And sometimes you get a whole like we got to cross this ocean. Like you know where you're going, and that's hundreds of days maybe, but at least you know where you're going. And sometimes it really feels like you got an hour. Like you only know what to do for the next hour. And it just changes, but it still requires faith.
But that's enough, right? Even just the
That's
next hour
enough.
is enough. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I know one of the things that you're working on where you're like maybe guiding yourself forward and things is a book that you've been working on.
Yeah.
And before we go today, I would love for you to share with us a little bit about that book and also where people can find more of you to connect with you in the future.
Oh, for sure. I did not want the like author title on my LinkedIn profile. Like I don't care to be an author. I've had amazing ghostwriters be like, your story's really cool and inspiring and all these things. Like, you should tell it. And I was like, yeah, I should. I could, but I don't want to just write a book. And I kind of challenged myself to challenge God, like, hey, if you write a book through me and with me, and you ask me to do this, like, I'm totally up for it. And so I was deep in my own kind of getting onto this path of tools and coaching when I heard a line, and I've changed this line, but it's heal the boy and find the man. And I had just won this competition with bodybuilding.com. I was on cloud nine, and then I came off of the party of all of the celebratory stuff of that, and I was like, I guess that's the best thing I'm gonna do with my life. And I slipped into this dark spot, and I beat myself up like, you should be happy. Like, look at all the things that are going well for you. And if I would rewind 5 years before that, I had a gun in my hand on Christmas Eve because I couldn't handle life and I wanted to finish it and be done. And as I started processing and doing my work, I realized I actually wanted to hurt my wife by hurting myself because of all the pain I thought she was inflicting upon me. And it turns out like I was the problem the whole time. So I'm post this competition. I'm slipping into this like I guess that's the best thing that's going to happen to me in my life. Pity party, and I turned on Netflix Not Your Guru with Tony Robbins. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, but I've heard of it. And I've
There,
and I've seen plenty of things by Tony, but yeah.
sure. And there's some F words in there. So if you're trying to filter your life, that might not be the documentary for you. But he's helping people in the audience, and I'm like, he's either Jesus or the Antichrist or something. Like this guy is crazy. And and I had watched Yes Man a few years before that with Jim Carrey, and this guy starts saying yes to life, and his life changes. But in the movie, they're making fun of Tony Robbins, in my opinion. And so I have all this like stigma around coaching and all these things, and I'm watching this guy really help people unpack. And he's talking to this couple and they've gotten out of harmony with each other. And the line I heard was heal the boy and find the man. And that's not exactly what Tony says, but that's what I recall.
Yeah.
And I just broke down and I was like, that's that's what I need to do. I need to heal the boy parts of me and really forge myself as a man. And so the book has taken that premise of, hey, you've never been a man before. My dad and I, when we would butt heads as teenagers, and he would come back to me to apologize and show love and get reconnected, he would say, Glenn, I've never been a dad before. And as a teenager, it just really gave me space to see him, feel him, allow him to make mistakes and not do it perfectly. And I don't know at what point in my own journey, but I remembered that story and I'm like, Glenn, you've never been a man before. Like even right now, like I am so banged up, chopped up. Can't, I'm like 35% the man I was because of this. We didn't really get into it, but I had a really bad accident in June where I almost died twice from riding my goofy mountain bike. And I'm very broken right now. You know, it's expensive to get a helicopter ride off the mountain and be in the hospital for 9 days and then not work for 6 months. Like it does stuff to your finances and to your psyche. And so, like, these are parts of me that I've never done before. I've never had 6 kids going into seven and then trying to write this ugly baby book of mine. Like, I'm doing things I've never done before. And of course, I'm not going to know how to do this. So, the book has this premise of if you will turn away from the world and not be so focused on external validation and goals, you can really get inward and do your internal work. And part of that internal work is healing the boy so you can forge the man. I think a lot of men right now are living in regret and fear, where we have regrets of the past, and if we're showing up stuck in our past today, we're gonna create not so great results. The news, the media, finances, our future, retirement, our kids, what they're doing, what they're not doing, troubles in our marriage and our health, and all the things that can happen to us as humans can create fear of the future too. And so if we show up with our precious minute right now, making decisions from fear, again, we're gonna create more regret because of the actions we're not taking today, and it just stacks into this like mess. So the book is a giant attempt to disrupt men and how they're thinking. It's not going to give them all the answers, but it's going to give them as much as I can give in a book. It's like, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And it's going to meet men where they are. Like this has been a huge undertaking. And some of these chapters are written with sarcasm and humor. Some of them are like written with a little bit of like sacred rage and sadness. And I'm trying to help men feel something different as they turn the pages or I'll record it and they can just listen to it while they do their thing. But that's the premise of the book. There's a passage in Luke 21, I believe, where it talks about the end times and the failing hearts of men from fear. And that passage just hits me. It's like we cannot fail as men. There's too much writing on what we're doing. And if we're just going to sit around and be comfortable and spend 8 hours on our freaking phones and have addictions with pornography and whatever else, even just modernity, like it's so easy to be comfortable now and not really step into who we can be. And if the world is on us and the programming is on us, like how are you going to receive divine revelation? President Nelson said it's basically going to be extremely difficult to survive these times. And I'm not quoting him directly, but the word was not thrive, it was survive.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very difficult to survive in these times if you're unable to connect. So, long story of the book, that's it. It's going to there's a story wrapped into it where a wise man comes along and takes men into the darkness of the cave and it introduces all these. So I think I've done a really cool job of trying to make it educational, entertaining, and inspiring and impactful. And like I said, I've created quite the mess. But as it comes together, I think it's gonna do it's gonna do a lot of good. If not, I'm gonna feel really
Beautiful
good of what
messes.
beautiful messes, yeah. So
Yep. Love it. I can't wait. I'm super excited. Any idea, like, to have a projected release date or anything?
every time I've set a date, I just break it. So
Yeah.
as of right now, I would love to see it done in the month of March. I have a publisher, editors are waiting, formatting is waiting, they're waiting on me. And so every time I've drawn a line in the sand, I just let myself down, and my last year has been a mess. So I
Yeah.
am pushing for, mid-March, end of March, and that's why I'm, meeting here for a week to try to
Yeah.
get some momentum going. So by this summer, like let's just say there's going to be copies ready and a book launch, and I would love everybody's support in that. So
Love it. Okay, can't wait. Have to let us know.
yeah,
Until then, where can people connect with you?
yes. So glennlovelace.com is my website. You can schedule a call if that calls to you. Um, the the website really targets men whose wives have transformed from coaching. So if you're a gal listening and you want to look at the copy on the site, and if it resonates with you and you just want to send it to your husband, great. If you're a dude listening to this and you're like, oh, that sounds great, but I really just need to make some more money right now, I'm still your guy, even though the website doesn't target it.
Mhm.
Um, Instagram, I'm really having a hard time with Instagram right now because of
I it's love hate, isn't it? It's
it
like more hate
is,
for me, but
but that's where I'm the most active.
okay.
It's your wingman is my handle. I've kind of set my business up kind of like the movie Hitch, where you kind of got to know somebody to get in to work with
Hmm.
Glenn, and that's not conducive to the work I've been called to do. But I'm very much your wingman. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm there for you. Part of my coaching style that's kind of important to know, and it breaks some life coach school rules, is I will take my coaching hat off and put my friend hat on, but I will tell men that I'm working with beforehand, okay, there's two different hats here at play, and they are totally different responses to what you're going through, but both sides will serve you very well.
Hmm.
But so that's kind of the background of It's Your Wingman. I don't know any guy that doesn't like Top Gun or some of those funny movies, but I
Yeah.
love that Goose, Maverick, let's do some hard stuff together mentality. I am not trying to outshine you. I'm literally just trying to make you as bright as you are and encourage you. I don't care if you have more money than me. Like I literally don't care about those things. And so the wingman mentality for me is really just an alter ego that I step into where it's like, how does the wingman show up? This is how he does it. Also, if people want to know more details about the book, they can text book to, I can give you the number, but it's 385-269-8011.
Okay.
And then the other one is if gals want my top 5 list to help their husbands become or be more open to coaching, they can text husband to that same number, and I will send them that little opt-in. The last step on that list says what your wife really wants and why. And it's a podcast episode that kind of targets that old Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want. Do you remember that movie?
I do. Yeah.
And so that podcast episode is my attempt to like, hey, here's what your wife's saying, and here's
Hmm.
here's the mansplain behind it, and so that's kind of fun too. But that's where people can find me. I answer all my own DMs and all the things. So if people want to reach out, I'd love to connect and help people out.
Awesome. Glenn, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you are in this world and doing this work and doing so much for humanity. I think it's awesome.
thank you so much. And I know we kind of like mapped out this idea of what this podcast could be. Happy wife, happy life. It's a total lie. And there's so many fun topics that we didn't cover, maybe another time. But there's definitely a lot to talk about. This work is important, and I just pray that whatever we talked about really resonates with the right people. And
Yeah.
personal revelation, husbands, wives, like we have got to do it. So
Yep, for sure. Well, I like to think that somehow this conversation went the way that it was because it was supposed to, right? There's somebody
yeah,
that hopefully, but
if
anyway.
if people want to hear the happy wife, happy life, it's a lie, they can go to Amanda Louder's podcast. I've been on there with it. You can go to Kelly Casperson's You're Not Broken, episode 178 or 179. That's one of her top most listened to episodes. And she has like one of the number one episodes for women's health, hormones, and sex. So that is a great one. I've covered that information before. So yeah, you're right. This
Okay.
this is new content and inspired, and I that other stuff's been covered if people want to look for it. So
Okay. Awesome. Well, and we'll have you back another time and maybe we can hit that then too. So thanks,
perfect.
Glenn.
Thank you.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.